George Lucas stole Jedi Knights in the Force from a 7-year-old kid. Just imagine, if you will, for a minute. It's 1974. You're a new movie director and you're trying to make a name for yourself, and you have this great idea for a space movie. You know, you pay a certain company for a synopsis, the hidden city, and then you change the synopsis to fit your story, but you just don't have the imagination. So then you hire a writer to ghostwrite for you, namely in this case Leigh Brackett, and you still don't have enough. You just feel like there's something you're missing. So you're looking everywhere, and your little cousin tells you, "Oh, my friend was playing this game. We were playing pirates, and he said he's a Jedi Knight, and he was going to use the Force, and he just started whipping on everybody with his sword." And well, that sounds pretty interesting. What's this kid's name? Get him on the phone with me. That's basically exactly what happened in 1974. I know, because I was the kid who he got on the phone. And he almost killed me the very same day, and that's the reason why eventually that I remembered that, and I went and put it on paper later on that year. Ironically, he got that name, Jedi Knight and the Force, from me in late April of 1974. And I guess by now I'm talking about George Lucas. And the more I think about it, I've sit and watched many of his interviews, waiting to see if he slipped and said anything that kind of gave him away. But he did interviews with Charlie Rose, Leslie Stahl, Bill Moyer. I've watched like tons of his interviews and just trying to catch him. And he's got his act down pretty good, I can tell you that. Considering the fact that when he did finally get me to come to his house, his cousin Jack Hamburger lived around the corner from me in Louisville, Kentucky in 1974, and he got me on the phone. Then he told me he was going to make me rich and famous if I gave him Jedi Knights and the Force. But he was too busy trying to figure out who else knew about it. He kept asking me, who else knows about it? See, he knew. He had never planned on keeping his word. Everybody thinks he's this great person. Again, I watched all these interviews, and they treat that man like he's a god, and he's a thief. He's a common thief. And that's the truth of it. And when you go back and you look at Star Wars, everything in Star Wars was plagiarized from someone else. There was two bantering robots in, just like R2-D2 and C-3PO in Leigh Brackett's and Edmund Hamilton's book. Their name was Otho and Greg. There's lightsabers was from one of their books from 1933. The Falcon. They had a ship called the Falcon. The tractor beams. I think there was even a Death Star or something like it in one of the books. And he said to claim space opera. See, he said space opera. So in one of his interviews, he was talking about space opera, which the original king and queen of space opera was Leigh Brackett and her husband Edmund Hamilton. So basically, he took something from everyone, and he kind of admits that in some of his interviews, that he took things from many places, see, to make his story complete, see. So it had a more human feel to it, see, because he was stealing everything from everywhere else and putting it. Even his soundtrack was taken from Gustav Holst's Planet Suite. I'm not just saying this. Start paying attention. Go look at some of my other videos. I posted pictures how Bosk, his bounty hunter, looks just like the Gorn from Star Trek. The dancing green girl looks like the dancing lady from Star Trek. There was an Antedian dignitary, I think, that was in Star Trek. Looks like Admiral Akbar. The Millennium Falcon looks like this old Russian prototype submarine hunter. I mean, there's it was called the Bartini Beria VV-14. So there's so many things that he used that belonged to other people. He told me he was going to make me rich and famous. Now look, I don't want his money, and I'm telling you right now, I don't want his money. Okay, it's past that. It's 48 years ago. But it's the point that he sit and told me he was going to make me rich and famous and lied to my face. The next year I was in a foster home. I was poor my whole childhood, and he never bothered to catch up to me and say, you know what, I need to do something for this kid. No, he didn't. I was in a burn clinic for many years because I pulled a coffee percolator down on me, and all the way up to the point then he could have at any time after that came back and found me and did something, but no, he didn't. See, because he has no he's no ethics and no I don't. Why would a person do that to a child to start with? Because he figured he could get away with it. For 48 years, he's lied to you all. He's lied to you about where he got Jedi Knights in the Force. And again, there was a Force in, and I said this in my last video, there was a Force in Edmund Hamilton's and Lee Brackett's books, but I didn't know anything about their Force, and that's not the Force that I understood. The same one they talk about is different than the one I was talking about, and the same one he stole from me, and when he stole Jedi Knights. And then his cousin proceeded to almost kill me just moments later in his backyard with a piece of rebar. I ended up in the hospital, nearly killed me again. They said a quarter-inch further I would have killed me because I ran full blast into a piece of rebar he had buried in the ground, and it was bent over, so when I ran, it went right in my mouth, and I came off my feet. Blood sprayed, and he jumped back and looked shocked because I jumped up. It didn't kill me, but it came really close. But my mother didn't understand what happened, and when I went home, she was preoccupied. She was talking to a lady who was, I still to this day think she was Tupperware, and my mother was sitting there with her, and I tried to get her attention, and she was like not paying attention to me. So I picked up a Tinker Toy and felt the roof of my mouth, and I couldn't. There was a hole. There was no roof there in the back of because it was all pushed back. See, except for this front part, which is like almost bone right here. The rest was pushed, gone all the way back, and I pulled it out. There was blood, and I turned to because I was going to go to the bathroom and look at how bad it was, and I fell. And she thought I fell on the Tinker Toy, see, and that's not what happened. And for years they thought I fell on a Tinker Toy, and I could try to tell them, no. And I seen him about a week later on the corner, and I threw a rock from 200 and some feet and busted his head. And his parents were threatening to call the police, and my dad made me go over and apologize to him, and I was trying to tell him, no, he almost killed me in his backyard. I couldn't explain because I didn't know the word for rebar. Kept saying, no, stick. My dad just apologizing. And then my dad said, you better stay away from those people. They seem like bad news. I'm like, oh. There's a little late to tell that, but my mother and father had gotten divorced, and my father had just been in town for a few moments, and that's when he took me over there. But we moved to West Palm Beach, Florida, and while I was down there, I took and wrote Jedi Knights in the Force on a piece of paper in 1974, and I put it in a document sleeve, and it vanished after 2000. And the funniest thing is, nobody knew it existed. Nobody knew where it was, except for me, my mother, and well, my two brothers kind of knew, but they didn't know. They didn't even know. They never saw the piece of paper. Only me and my mom did. And that was stuck in a storage shed way out in the country. It was in somebody's attic and then in the storage shed. And both of my brothers had the same kind of document sleeve, and both of theirs were still there. Mine was the only one gone. Look, I'm just trying to tell you all, The truth is going to come out, whether you hear it from me or you hear it from God, because he stole from a 7-year-old kid. A 7-year-old kid. George Lucas stole Jedi Knights in the Force from a 7-year-old kid, lied to him, told him he was going to make him rich and famous, and then left him in the dirt. Got what he wanted and ran down the road. You can call it, say whatever you want, but that's foul. It is. It's foul, and Hollywood is full of corruption, and I'm just trying to tell you, you know, that's the kind of thing that people need to wake up to, and you know, he should be called out. And I still think that it's possible. And as I said, that he sent, when I remembered all this, I started remembering in 2000 because my mother was telling the story about me falling on the Tinker Toy. I said, that's not what happened. And so all my friends were sitting there, and I was like, that's not what happened. I said, I was in that kid's backyard. Well, at that point, I still didn't remember. We went in there a couple months later. I went to I moved down to Port St. Lucie, Florida, came back up at the beginning of 2000, and me and my mother were going through the paperwork, and I pulled out that piece of paper out of my document sleeve. It said Jedi Knights in the Force. And I go, what is this? And it still didn't click, you know. And she said, oh, Davey drew that, which is my nephew. No, he didn't, because his stuff would not have been stored in my document sleeve. It would have been stored in his dad's, if anything. Which I had 2 brothers, so both of them had their own. So Davey being his kid, it would have been stuck in his, not mine. And it still didn't dawn on me until later that year. I had moved to Ohio. I got married. Well, I didn't get actually married until 2001, but I got engaged in 2000, and I moved to Ohio. And it was later in the year, in 2000, I was standing there and I go, and it was like a dam broke, and all that memory came back, and I was like, he robbed me. I knew, I remembered it. He robbed me. He robbed a 7-year-old kid. George Lucas robbed a 7-year-old kid. So at that point, I tried to communicate with him a couple times, and I was being polite. And you can go back and read the letters. I posted some of the letters I sent to him on my other videos. And he sent an ex-FBI agent, or he was, I don't know if he was ex or still FBI, but there's some really weird things that happened after that. And I still suspect that the FBI is more corrupt than anybody realizes. Information laundering, you know, that sort of thing. Now, one, he still didn't know that I had that piece of paper. And as a matter of fact, the first time I mentioned it in one of my videos was 2014. So the only way he could have known about it prior to that is if they had been tapping my phones. Nobody knew but my mother and my 2 brothers, who had talked to my brothers on the phone after 2001, because I kept trying to go get them to go get my document sleeve. My mother knew about it, and my brothers. That's it. And none of them are rich. None of them are well-to-do. They're all just as bad off as any of the rest of us. So, all of my documents from my childhood were in my sleeve, including my original birth certificate, my diplomas, everything, my medical records, my immunization book. All of it was in my document sleeve, and it's all gone. And as I was going to say earlier in the video, I suspect after he sent that FBI agent to my house, that they tapped my phone, that they found the location of those, eventually figured it out. Because I never directly said it, I don't think, in any of the phone calls, where it was, and nobody could have known. Nobody could have known. They would have had to have figured it out. And I think that whoever got it sold George out. I think they sold it to the highest bidder, and the highest bidder was Disney. You know, when you start looking at how he acted after they got it, he called them white slavers. He tried to keep control of it. If you sell a car, do you tell people how that you want it painted? Or do you want, you want this kind of brakes on it, or you want this kind of wheels? No, you don't. Dude, he stole it. They found the information. I think they bought it from the whoever rogue FBI agent was, because they had to be tapping my phones. They could not have known. Nobody knew the existence of that paper but me and my two brothers and my mom. And my two brothers probably didn't remember, but they were in the kitchen when I made it in 1974. But before that, my mom saw it in 2000 with me standing in the bedroom, and there's no way nobody could have found it. It's great. You don't know. You're going to find out. Again, corrupt. You don't do that to a kid, man. You don't do that to a kid. Again, you're going to find out. I don't care how much you defend him or how much you love Star Wars, or you don't even know what a Jedi Knight is and where I got it from. So you'll find out one day, because God knows and God is my witness. And that's the only witness I need. My younger brother remembers. My older brother slightly remembers, but my younger brother does remember. So he remembers Jedi Knights in the Force from 1974, not 1977 when Star Wars came out. But anyway, I got his message to me when we were talking about it, so I've got that screenshot. I got a screenshot of our conversation, and you can still talk to him today. He'll tell you the same thing. He remembers it. My older brother remembers something tonight. He just didn't remember the Jedi. Anyway, you are going to find out the truth about old Georgie boy. He's a plagiarist, and I suspect we might even find more things out about him. So who knows? Take care.